Okay, objective number 3 from the hazardous material chapter 10, uh, deals with the how we're going to identify and classification systems used in used for hazardous material. Before we as fire inspectors can inspect any hazardous material, uh, they have to be properly assigned a classification uh, as we as directed in our fire code that we have adopted. So whether it's the excuse me, the IFC or the NFPA document. So um, we have to, one, understand what it is, two, how it's classified to be able to evaluate. So verifying the proper chemical classification is very similar to inspecting an existing building. So generally, the inspector will review any property or permit information. Um, so where do we, when we're looking at the source of that information, we can go to the building certificate of occupancy, which is the original document that helped us understand what was going on inside the building when we originally approved it. So we might be able to identify the occupancy classification, the type of construction that the building is, the materials and the assemblies for how the building was put together, the overall building area, and how it's properly, whether it's protected and is it properly protected. So if it's a sprinkler system detection, things to that nature, and uh, is what is there today the same as what it was when it was originally issued. So classification is the first step when we're looking at how we're going to regulate hazardous materials. Um, we need to get it right the first time so that we don't have uh, any type of incorrect evaluation, which may lead to a hazardous situation or an exposure to uh, a hazardous event or health event. So first thing we can go to is is this are the safety data sheets. Uh, it's a great start, but it doesn't always provide enough information to allow you to properly classify hazardous materials. So, um, especially as we're trying to clarify, what the requirements are for our adopted code. So, if we're looking at the International Fire Code or the NFP 400. Uh, Fortunately, NFPA and the IFC, NFPA 1 and the IFC, give us inspectors the authority to require additional information or additional evaluation from an individual that may be considered a subject matter expert, but is qualified. Uh, it has provided qualifications that can help determine what the chemical's hazard classification is. We're experts in a lot of things, but there are some things where we do need a third party to provide additional uh, uh, information for classification. So a single compound or hazardous material, they could have multiple hazards. For example, in anhydrous chlorine, it's used to treat water and manufacture semiconductors and certain plastics, and has other compounds that have this type of material in it. Uh, Anhydrous chlorine, it's an oxidizer. It has toxic uh, qualities in it. It's a corrosive liquefied compressed gas. So we would have to look into the International Fire Code to classify uh, how it's going to be classified, and then also NFPA 55. We'd have to look which is a compressed gas code, and determine, what are some of the requirements for this material. So if we are presented with multiple hazards, uh, the fire code says we have to address all of them. So this anhydrous chlorine, we have to figure out how it's stored, and if it's going to, depending on the storage and the quantity, what are the requirements of the International Fire Code, and from NFPA 55 requirement as what does it, what is the requirements as a liquefied compressed gas that is an oxidizer, is corrosive, and it's toxic. So some it's a challenge to be able to sort out all the hazards and be able to properly evaluate the controls. And this note is helps put things in perspective for you as inspector. We are put in situations that help that we're asked to assist in classifications, um, but uh, you've got to be cautious. We want to be able to make sure that we have a very complete and accurate uh, evaluation of what's there. Uh, and oftentimes we're not getting the complete story from the occupant or the business. So, it's it you need to know when to say when and when to get that evaluation from that subject matter expert. There are several resources available to assist us inspectors in determining classifications. Uh, their hazardous material expert assistance software. It's a database contains 8,000 hazardous materials and compounds. It allows the user to search by chemical name, synonym, or chemical abstract service number. Appendix E of the International Fire Code contains examples of hazardous materials using the code's criteria. Section E103 offers guidance on the steps to take to evaluate the hazards of a material. So, if you're using the International Fire Code, uh, take a look at that appendix, get familiar with the code and how it addresses and categorizes hazardous materials. The back end of the IFC is chock full of evaluating hazardous materials and how they're being used. Um, there's a wireless information system for emergency responders. It's known as WISER. It's a free internet-based search engine developed by the National Library of Medicine. It compiles a number of databases developed by several U.S. agencies, and it's a good resource. You should now understand, how you access uh, this information, um, and whether it's online or it's a hard copy, how can you get to it, and are you familiar to navigate through it? Okay, this is the last slide for objective number 3. But hazardous materials, there's two major categories, and one is the physical hazard of the material, and the second is the health hazard of the material. So something that you need to start figuring out, which one applies where. Um, and one question that I'll leave you with is, what are some of the resources available to assist inspectors in determining hazardous materials classifications? We had talked about that a slide or two ago, but if you go to your IFSTA manual, look on page 386 to review what some of those resources are.